Here they come. It's the man-eaters. Wanted to showcase these guys because they will chew you up. Oh my god. A fantastic unit in a pretty cost-effective package, honestly. And I think that's one of the things that defines Ogres. I haven't actually shown any of the Ogre games that I've played yet. They're my favorite faction. I've played most of my games with them, honestly. But, you know, none of the games have been just cast-worthy. But this game in particular was an incredibly well-played close game. And really wanted to show it because I feel like it highlights a couple of the strengths that the man-eater units in particular have. First off, man-eater great weapons have stupid bonus versus large power. I mean, 26 is absurd. An incredible unit. And I was looking at some of the other bonus versus large bonuses on some other units, and you know, they've got one of the biggest of all of them. Screamers have a really large one as well. But Screamers get manhandled pretty bad by man-eaters, as you'll see at a couple different points. With the buffering you can provide these guys with Gnoblars, they are incredibly difficult to remove. You have got to get rid of chaff before you can tackle these guys. Or bring tons of range pressure, which Tzeentch obviously has plenty of. But you'll see how this battle plays out. So for what I'm going to bring Skrag. I wish it would just show the actual abilities that I brought, because all I brought was Bullgorger and Troll Guts on him. I really think that's all Skrag needs. You can bring Bone Crusher to get the kills, so you can power up your, where is it at? Cauldron of the Maw. You know, because as he gets kills, the effects get better and everything, and it makes Gorgers even more oppressive than they already are. Speaking of which, I'm only going to bring 2. I feel like just bringing 2... The big problem with Gorgers, I think, is when it's just mass Gorgers, because they're unbreakable and they hold an obnoxious, obscene length of time that, you know, they just beat everything down. And it's no fun to play against, you know? Just not enjoyable. And I don't love bringing all of the Ogre cheese. I've been experimenting with a lot of different builds. I brought the Iron Blaster in this matchup, and honestly I think you really need it against Tzeentch, and I'll show you how I use it in this matchup, because you'll see it counters barriers very well, and you honestly don't even use it to rack up massive damage on lords in this situation. But anyways, Skrag, Iron Blaster, man-eater great weapons, Gnoblar trappers, and 2 regular Gnoblars. And then what I brought that I really enjoy and am trying to find more uses for is the Hunter on his Stonehorn. I brought him stock, didn't bring any of the abilities, but I am beginning to think that it might actually be worthwhile to bring Loner specifically, and Crippling Throw at the very least, because both of these provide some pretty interesting buffs and debuffs, respectively. Loner, the extra speed, and that is a lot of leadership. On top of his already decently high leadership, which I believe is higher than regular Stonehorn harpoon launchers anyways. Effectively, he's unbreakable. I mean, 87 leadership is ridiculously high, so this guy can fight alone on top of an objective as long as he wants, or run into the back line and just be an absolute terror. Because, you know, I mean, 30 meters, that's close enough to where he can be pretty much anywhere and still receive the healing and the Bullgorger effects from the casters, whether you bring Skrag or somebody else. Toothcracker has some interesting applications. I think I may have even brought it in this game because it is such a good spell. I mean, the 30 armor and missile resistance really stacks up well on top of man-eaters who don't have amazing armor. Getting them up to 70 makes a huge difference against all of the missile strength here. Because Tzeentch does have excellent shooting, but one thing that a lot of their units that shoot outside of flamers is they don't have tons of AP. You know, only 5 on the pink horrors and 2 on blue horrors, you know. So getting these guys up to 70 armor with the 22% missile resistance, and then 80 armor with the shield and missile resistance on these guys really helps with their survivability against mass shooting, which is really the only way to bring down these big meaty Iron Fist type units. For my reserves, 2 Man-Eater Iron Fists. These guys will hold an objective forever with their good combat stats. Some Iron Guts, already mentioned the Gorgers. And, you know, 90 armor on these guys, and they're really good against, like, Doom Knights and Chaos Knights, because they have such good armor on them, and because they do such good armor piercing themselves, they provided some pretty good punch against these guys, you know? And getting Bullgorger on top of them, and just some other general support, they can perform really cost-effectively. One of the best units on the Ogre roster, I think, and unfortunately outshined by Gorgers. I think that's the real shame of all of the power behind Iron Blasters and Gorgers, is that people just aren't using all of the other tools in the Ogre roster, which I think are very powerful. Brought 3 Ogre Bulls with the Iron Fists. The extra melee defense makes them a little more tanky in combat, and then obviously the shields help their survivability against all this Tzeentch shooting. Good weapon strength, charge bonus is really good. Love, love, love Ogres on the charge, and something that I think I'm coming to realize, and I'll talk about later in the battle, is how they should be played with rushing. Saber-Tusk packs. These guys are fantastic little units. I mean, 500 gold for an incredibly powerful high DPS unit, and they chew through Tzeentch units. If you can get on the squishy stuff like horrors and pink horrors, their lack of magical attacks really doesn't hinder them all that badly. You know, because these guys have such low armor, and 20% only does so much. You know, it's something, but not quite it. 2 more Nobbler Trappers, you know, just to sneak around on objectives and provide a little bit of punch with their missile strength, which isn't terrible, you know. I mean, 17 is not great. Only 2 armor-piercing missile damage, but they have quite a bit of ammo, and I don't think they get used to their full effect, and I'm still trying to figure out how to best use these guys. But they're a good little unit, much better than their credit is given to them, in my opinion. And then 3 more regular Nobblars, just to provide some meat on objectives. And yeah, my opponent, Kairos, 1 Forsaken, 3 Screamers, 4 Blue Horrors, 2 Doom Knights, Chaos Knight, Spawn, 2 Flamers, 1 more Forsaken, 3 Pink Horrors. It's a lot of Pink Horrors to bring. I was interested to see that, actually, because I feel like honestly, just bringing like 1 or 2 is plenty. And then some more Blue Horrors. Blue Horrors are very cost-effective unit to bring. You know, if they get their ranged attacks off, they can pay for themselves pretty quickly. Anyways, I'm going to jump into this battle. And we'll see how this goes, you know? I'm very excited to showcase this one because, you know, bringing something a little different. You know, the Iron Blaster, very meta, but Hunter on a Stonehorn and the Man-Eater great weapons are both units that you don't see very often, and units that I think are going to be found to be excellent, honestly. Alright, so...
Look upon your children, gripe more. Behold, their endless hunger.
Love the little speeches. They're not huge, and they're not quite as hilarious as they were way back in the day in like Medieval 2 and Rome 1, but it's nice to hear just a little bit of a speech, a pep talk, if you will, from the great butcher himself, you know? Love the Noblars. The energy on these guys is just impeccable. I mean, look at them. They're so excited to be here. Ugh, the vibes. Alright, moving up with all my units. I'm just gonna posture forward. Got my Iron Blaster moving up right here. Gonna put the Noblar Trappers on top of the Maneater Great Weapons. Just because I saw these Screamers and was needed to post up and prepare for that. Because you know, that's a pretty scary little Air Force right there. And they will mulch through an Iron Blaster, no problem. They can trap it up pretty well, and you know, their bonus versus large is nothing to sneeze at either. Shooting at Kairos with the Iron Blaster, I was just trying to pop his shield and, you know, make him afraid of taking all that damage and stress his micro. But you can see now that I'm going to aim onto these blue horrors, actually. Oh, never mind. Firing one more volley up here at Kairos, actually. I think I swore that my intention was to pop the shields on these guys. Anyways, they're going to get a pretty good volley on my Stonehorn Hunter. Took a little bit of damage there. Not too bad. And there you go. Now I'm firing into the blue horrors and getting those shields off. And you're going to see I'm going to swap over onto this other unit of blue horrors. The goal here was to pop the shield so that my Noblars could actually poke in on these guys, you know? Because any damage that I can get on these, prevent them from shooting, because they're right here on range against my Iron Blaster, and they've done a decent amount of poke already. But now I'm on top of these guys. I'm going to try and chew through them pretty quickly. My opponent's doing a good job of pulling back, and you can see here, he's posting up and getting ready for the dive now. He's going to set his Screamers up right above and just dive right in, man. He's going full blast for it. But these guys get the Noblar traps on them. And you're going to see, man, Ogre Maneaters. I popped the Troll Guts on them and the Bull Gorger to give them the extra melee attack and the healing so they weren't dropping too many models against these guys, because they do good damage against them. But you can see how trapped up some of these Screamers are now. Having a really bad day, man. Over here, the Tzeentch Firestorm comes down. It does a surprising amount of damage to the big, meaty Ogre Bulls. Very surprised to see that. Actually, has some pretty good applications, I think, against Ogres. No Pendulums yet from my opponent, which is really nice to see. And here, Skrag is in the fight that he definitely wants there. Got some Saber Tusks on top of 2 units of Blue Horrors, and then some Noblars coming in to support. And my opponent's shooting is pretty locked down right now. He was definitely outvaluing me early because my Ogre Bulls got picked apart pretty seriously. But in the back here, Noblar Trappers throwing their little, their scrap in at these Screamers. One of the units has already gone down to the Maneaters with great weapons who have not really taken all that much damage. Good lord, man, these guys are powerful. Iron Blaster firing back at Kairos again. Gets a little bit of damage in on him, you know, just pressuring him, making him respect the Iron Blaster. And here we go. His units are back, relatively uncontested again, shooting in, but more Ogre Bulls and Saber Tusks coming in and just steamrolling through these little blue horrors. Blue Fire coming down does really good damage, and now my opponent's trying to focus Skrag down, so I'm going to run away with them and try and get a good retreat off. My opponent came in with yet another dive with the Screamers, and now you can see Maneaters and the Noblar Trapper missiles just mulch these guys. Calling in the Firestorm is a pretty good play, though. I did have quite a bit bunched up on here, but I was able to run away in decent time. The Noblars take a good bit of damage. You can see here, he's got a unit of Flamers. You know, I popped the shields on them with the Iron Blaster already. They are bathing my front line in all of this warp fire. I was able to capture this middle objective, which was the goal. I really needed to hold it. And you can see here, getting the saber tusks, and now I'm bringing, since the screamers are gone, bringing in the man-eaters into the front line. We are going after these flamers, and now that they're trapped up, they are done. They're done. They can't get away. Their speed is, I believe, the exact same as ogre man-eater. Oh, even less actually. Man-eaters with the better speed. They got Gaze of Fated, but it was just too late at that point. They were still in on them and just mulched through them. Flamers are so squishy, man. But my opponent doing a good job of saturating fire on top of these guys. And you can see over here, he's captured this objective, and all the while, my Stonehorn has been unable to take this objective from these Forsaken, who my opponent had snuck up over here. I didn't want to commit this guy into the middle fight, because I didn't want him to get picked apart by all this range. I probably should have kept him there. With Micro, he would have been okay, I think. But anyways, he's getting chewed on by Screamers, so I'm bringing in some Noblar Trappers to provide some support and buffering. And I'm going to be bringing them back here into the middle in a minute. And over here, even though they're getting shot up pretty bad, Man-Eaters with great weapons are doing great work, just swinging their gigantic freaking hammers in. And they're just cleaving through 2 or 3 horrors at a time. These guys will tear apart units in just a matter of seconds. Got some Gorgers moving in, and my opponent brought in some Chaos Knights, you know. They had all these guys trapped up back here for just for a minute. But they're going to suffer in this fight. Saber Tusks, while they're not ideal against Chaos Knights, are providing the buffering for the Gorgers to get their damage in. We all know how busted these guys are. More Ogre Iron Fists. Every time they got low, I was just desummoning them and bringing them back in with their cost and effectiveness back at full strength. Kairos has been taking quite a bit of damage in here. The Iron Blaster's gotten a couple of good shots in, and then, you know, he saw the Man-Eater great weapons coming in, knew he needed to get out of there. But my opponent is coming in with yet another massive wave of horrors. And you're going to see here in a minute, I'm going to just run for the hills. I've got to get out of here. This is a terrifying situation, and with all this magic coming down, my units are really starting to get mulched in by the Tzeentch firepower and magic abilities. And these Chaos Knights did what their job was. Get a nice big blob, and my opponent got crazy value in just those couple seconds there, man. Got a lot of HP damage and killed a few models on the Gorgers. Routed off the Man-Eaters, who are probably not going to be coming back at this point. The Ogre Iron Fists are relatively healthy, though, and you'll see how that plays in later. My opponent didn't have anything over here, so I take some tattered units, and I'm running over here just to force him to respond to something. He's having to use a whole 700 gold on these Screamers, you know. They'll clean up these units, but, you know, they don't provide capture power, so he has to run back here with his Forsaken. I've got a little unit of Noblars running in behind, but my opponent decides to turn around and jump on these guys and get rid of them. More Flamers coming in, doing ungodly amounts of damage, and I've only got a few shots left on my Iron Blaster here. You can see the game plan with this guy is to pop the shields before I charge in, because without the shields, Tzeentch units are very squishy. Well, they don't have great melee defense. They're not as good hybrid combatants as Kislev is. I think Kislev has the real treat of being the best hybrid units. My opponent taking the point here. This unit of Gorgers got absolutely wasted right there. So many of the little plasma grenades coming in, doing a lot of work. But I've reconstituted my army here. Lots of tattered units, but got a healthy unit of Gorgers here, and, you know, bringing in some more Iron Fists, and here's the first unit of the Man-Eater Iron Fist. You'll see how well these guys do against all this chaff. And here we go. I'm charging back in. I'm getting in here with my Noblar Trappers, throwing their little weapons, popping the shields. Got my Gorgers coming in here on these blue horrors with the Stonehorn. You can see the disruption to the formation, man. That's one of the strongest things about Ogres, their ability to push through a front line. You can see here, I am going right through right through the formation, and I'm going to take a side charge right down on these flamers, because I need to shut these guys down, because they're doing ghastly damage to my units. You can see, Gorgers got hit real bad with those Ogre Bull Iron Fists, but now the Stone Horn and all of these units are just busted through. This poor little unit just didn't have the mass to save these poor flamers. There's no getting away again. Iron Blaster is 66 speed, it's absurd, and then the Hunter, 66 speed as well. Trash canning these poor flamers who are just suffering horribly at the hands of these two units. Saturated in on top of these other horrors now. This unit has gone down completely to the Iron Fists and Man-Eater Iron Fists. Back here, I saw these Forsaken. They had cleaned up these Noblars and were coming down to get a surround on my units. So I just kept all my Ogre Bulls and one unit of Noblars moving forward, dumpstering here, while I just let the Forsaken chew on all these guys. That was perfectly fine by me. Over here on this flank, the Stonehorn, some Saber Tusk, and Noblar Trappers are able to clean up the unit of Forsaken over here, and the Screamers needed to move back into the middle to help deal with all the threats I had. And you can see, I've actually got near a triple cap, and he never came with a unit to get my progress off of this point, so I'm going to use one unit of Man-Eater Iron Fists over here to take that point and get the triple cap and get myself back in this game. I was getting a little bit of compensation from the being behind in the VPs, but you know, that can only do so much if I get too far behind. Right here, these Forsaken are in a very bad neighborhood now. The Saber Tusks are on top of them, preventing them from getting their charge against this huge blob. But they wouldn't be doing too much regardless anyways, because all of these Iron Fists and Gorgers are just coming in and putting an absolute pounding in on these Forsaken. You can see these pink cars here having a bad day too. They used all their ammo and now they're just here in combat, trying to do what they can, but with the Iron Blaster and all these just strong weapon damage units, it's going to be over for them. And I have retaken this point. These Screamers are providing good value. The buffering here is doing a good job. I'm just trying to kill these units before I can focus these guys down. And you can see over here, my opponent, knowing that he needs to try and retake at least his natural, has sent some Screamers and Kairos and a unit of Blue Horrors over here to deal with these Iron Fists. And they're holding surprisingly well against a dedicated anti-large specialist and against a pretty good Lord. Kairos doesn't do a ton of damage per se, but when he lands hits, he will kill models of the Man-Eaters.
I knew it.
And at that point, my opponent realized he just didn't have the time he needed to get these objectives wrestled back from me. It was really well played by him. The middle fight was very intense and definitely was losing out on value for a good long while there. But I was able to apply damage to the units that really mattered. Those two Flamers, his two summons of it, got almost no value. I think each of them only got one, maybe two volleys off each. And then over here, losing his Forsaken on this point and being able to cap it with just these Noblar Trappers was more than enough for me. And again, you know, flying units and Screamers especially are great and all, but you need to remember to take off the objective capture progress of units. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a situation like this where I just walk over one unit, cap it, and then you don't have anything here to retake. You know, and it's a big difference between having to completely recap an objective versus just holding it. Totally different ball game, and I think my opponent realized that, and with all of these units coming down here to hold this one, him losing the fight here in the middle, and only just now starting to cap this objective off of me, there wasn't too much to do. Well played by him. Love to get another game in against his Tzeentch. Maybe with a different Ogre army, you know. But we're going to jump in here, stop babbling about things, and we're going to look at some damage values. And you're gonna see, you know, the Iron Blaster got decent value. 2100. It's pretty good. Not as much as you might see in some other matchups where it just snipes the Lord and gets 3000 value in the first 5 minutes, you know. But doing exactly what I needed it to do in this matchup, which was to make all these guys suffer without their shields, you know. They got good value regardless, these blue horrors did, with there were so many of them, and they were firing in so effectively that, you know, my units were getting picked off pretty good. Skrag, not a ton of value on him. He was just fighting against some little guys, so just wanted to get the kills so that my Gorgers had their buffs. And these guys didn't do too hot, honestly. Again, I feel like it's the saturation of like 3 or 4 Gorgers at once that makes them an unholy terror. Just 1 or 2 units, though, I don't honestly think are all that powerful. They do clear out infantry pretty good, and can put good DPS in on a lot of different units, even ones they're not ostensibly good against. But, you know, with good focus fire, these guys suffer really bad. I mean, this one unit got absolutely torched by all the blue and pink horrors. And this one did a little bit better. Was still there at the end of the game. Would have continued getting good value. You can see the kills that these Maneaters racked up. Here, and this is something I also want to talk about real quick. Damage value is not always the best indicator of the role that a unit played in a game. Like I mentioned with the Iron Blaster, usually what you see is these guys come in and snipe artillery or monstrous cav or infantry. Lords suffers horribly against Iron Blasters. That's usually what you see, but I was using this piece to, as I said, pop shields, and also to get kills on his units, to start getting them a little tattered, so that my units could bull rush through the front line and get on these really dangerous flamers. You can see here, this is the one he summoned in twice. 850 gold unit, and he only got a little bit of value on this guy. It got a lot of kills on some Noblars and a few Ogre Bull Iron Fists and some Gorgers, but just not very effective, you know. Just not doing what they needed to do, which was to kill Skrag and the Stonehorn, these Man-Eaters with great weapons, the Iron Blaster while it was rampaging through my enemy's lines without its ammo. And, yeah, you know, gotta keep these guys alive if you're gonna bring them. They're one of the most important units on the Tzeentch roster, and with good micro and good play, they can do unholy amounts of damage. I just think it's too difficult to do against Ogres. With the excellent ranged pressure that Ogres can provide, as well as the mass to just push through at will, I don't know if these guys are any good in this matchup, honestly. You might want to just forego them entirely and just continue going wider. Honestly, the most effective units I've found against Ogres are just chaff units with a ranged attack, because they can just sit there and throw all day. And you can see this pink horror unit doubled its value. It got 52 kills, and a lot of that was against my Gorgers and Ogre Bull Iron Fists while they were saturated in combat. Great use of these guys by my opponent. And I think that's where his skills shine the most, and I think if he had just continued playing into that, I would have had would have been a much different game. Probably wouldn't have been able to win. You can see the ridiculous number of kills on these guys, mulching through my Noblars and everything. Yeah. 1300 value on these guys against those Screamers, as I said, did good value. Only 13 kills on these guys. Decent gold value damage on them. And, yeah, you know, that was against the Screamers off on that side object. No, it was the first unit I summoned in. Against those Screamers diving my Iron Blaster at the beginning. And you can see the value they can get with their little ranged weapons, because that's all they were throwing, really. In actual melee combat, they suffer pretty badly. All these Ogre Bull Iron Fists didn't really pay for themselves. They were just there for mass and to take fire from my enemy. Saber Tusks did alright, you know. I think I summoned a couple of them in twice. But they got good kills against the horrors and provided good stopping power. More Nobblar Trappers, getting a little bit of value. Nobblars didn't really do a whole lot, you know. That's really all they're there for, is to just take damage and buffer for the bigger, scarier Ogre units. Hunter didn't quite pay for himself, but did provide good disruption. And that's something that I think is underestimated by a lot of players, is if the messier you make the fight, the more difficult it is for your opponent to parse out what's going on. And with Ogres, you know, your units are a lot easier to push in and out of combat. And something that I've been experimenting in is more discrete pushes, if that makes any sense. Like, taking units, working them in to the enemy's lines, and just absolutely causing havoc, and then pulling out and forming up for another solid push. And they're like a tide for Ogres, in my opinion. You know, the Nobblars are the wave lingering on the beach, and the Ogres are the wave crashing in over the top of that, just absolutely messing up the enemy's ability to maintain formation, you know, because Tzeentch really needs to do that if its shooting's going to be effective, and it's really hard to do it against Ogres, like I said, and I think Ogres can do that to just about anybody. But yeah, I think that's going to be the end for this one. Fun game, really fun to cast this one, and yeah, thanks for watching if you're here, really appreciate it.